So the next viewpoint on telos or purpose that we're going to look at is Sartre's. And Sartre is quite famous for having said existence precedes essence. So it's very much in contrast to Aquinas' views. For Sartre, this quote here is trying to say that essentially you exist as a person before you define what it is to be you. So you come into the world as a person, you exist, and then as you develop and change and grow as a person, you cultivate or you develop what it means to be you, what the essence of you as an individual is. So you weren't born being students who were interested in religious studies. That wasn't something that was destined in the stars or preordained to be something that you would be interested in. It's something that you've developed an interest in, hopefully, as you've existed and lived your life. So, as you can probably tell, very much in contrast to Aquinas, doesn't think that humans have a purpose that they're preordained to try and achieve. Sartre very much disagreed with Aquinas' idea that there was a plan for all of humanity that God had created, and that we needed to do certain things in order to achieve our purpose. Okay, so scrapping the idea that God's got a plan for us, you are what you are, and that develops as you become who you become over time. So we're not designed, and again going back to that teleological argument of Paley's, so he doesn't agree that kind of human beings have a specific purpose that they need to achieve in the same way that objects do. So when we look at a watch, yes, we can see that there's a purpose to it, there's a design to it, etc. But we are not equal to watches. We are not equal to machines. As human beings, we don't have that clear purpose and design built within us. We can't say that you're failing to be a good human because you don't meet that specific purpose. In the same way, we can say that something is failing to be a good watch because it's not fulfilling the purpose of telling the time. So the group of philosophers, school of thought rather, that Sartre most famously belonged to is called Existentialism. Exist as in something which exists. A bit of a clue in the prefix there, the beginning of the word. So for existentialists, they focus on the idea that we as human beings, we are free, rational, well, not always rational, but we're free agents. We get to choose what we are, who we are, and we're responsible for our own selves and our own actions. So, as you can tell, it's not a very religious school of thought because it essentially just says that no one is predetermining you in your life, in your choices. You are responsible for yourself and your own actions. Sartre takes this arguably quite far. His famous but girlfriend kind of liaison, Simone de Beauvoir, who wrote a really famous book called The Second Sex, kind of challenged him on this point because he sort of said that, any human being, Sartre claimed that any human being, any place, location, etc., or time on the earth is free to make choices. They're never sort of restricted. We constantly have the option to do something else, and to deny that is to kind of live in what he calls bad faith. So his famous, they weren't in a monogamous relationship, but partner was Simone de Beauvoir, and she sort of said, well, actually, are you genuinely saying that people who live in really deprived circumstances where they don't have access to clean drinking water, or they don't have access to a school, they have the same capabilities and the same potential to go to Oxford, Cambridge, etc., as someone from a well-off background, etc. So he did eventually make allowances in his ultimate freedom, but essentially, yeah, for Sartre, we all have a choice in our actions. We're always free to make choices in our lives. To stand there and say, well, I'm being forced to do this. I don't really want to, but I have no choice, is, as I said before, what Sartre claims to be living in bad faith. So you're denying the existence of your free will and your autonomy, your ability to govern and rule yourself, and to make different choices. So if you don't want to do something, you can always make another choice. The example that he quite famously uses is a waiter. So he says that, a waiter in a restaurant who's kind of playing the role of the waiter and doing what he thinks you're supposed to do as a waiter and behaving in a certain way because he thinks that's what waiters do. He's living in bad faith because he's denying that he's anything other than just a waiter, and denying that he has the potential and the ability to be something else if he so chose, or not to be something else, because Sartre doesn't necessarily think that humans are fixed products, that you are ever one final thing. He thinks you're constantly kind of growing, changing, developing, and kind of becoming something more, becoming something new every time you might make a new choice almost. So yeah, for Sartre, there isn't a purpose for human beings. We decide on what we are, who we are, with our choices and our actions, and we're entirely free to do that. Nothing limits us, no ultimate purpose or ultimate telos guides us towards acting in a certain way. And to deny that and say that you don't have a choice, that your actions aren't entirely your own choosing, is to live in what Sartre calls bad faith. Yeah, so a bit like, I'm sure you guys have seen little kids do this, who just kind of claim that they had no choice but to take something from another child, or to claim they had no choice but to eat the sweeties, when you clearly did. You chose to do the wrong thing. Well, I shouldn't say the wrong thing because that's a judgment there, but we make choices in our lives and we're entirely responsible for them, is essentially what Sartre believes.